Smile, Phil. Awesome. I never take enough pictures. All right, this is the garden party, guys. Let me get the guitar. Them old picking strings over here. We'll get this thing started. Because me and Phil got a fun, educational, fig-tastic show for y'all tonight.
Only always.
Fig-tastic is... You need to trademark fig-tastic, by the way. This is the garden party, and we want a garden party with you. We talk about the plants that grow and some things you might not know. The garden party. Phil, go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
What up, everybody? It's Phil from Phil's Figs. All things figs, your favorite plant parent as well as parent. Back on the show again. Fig heavy this time.
Yes, I hope y'all enjoyed my co-host, Mr. Phil DeAngelis. How do you say your last name? DeAngelis.
DeAngelis.
Of the Angels.
Of the Angels.
Philip of the Angels, the Italian stallion. He actually told me offline that he is second cousins with the guy who's inside the Philly Fanatic costume.
No. Can I say that?
No.
Before I went bald, I had green hair. It was crazy. No.
You had green hair?
No, dude. I have short hair.
I've always been a big fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, although I hate Philadelphia. I grew up a Cowboys fan, so anything Philadelphia just makes me want to, gag, But I have worn a Green Man costume at one point in my life. I definitely had a Green Man costume at one time.
Have you watched Always Sunny? You've had to.
Yes. There are pictures of me wearing a Green Man costume somewhere.
That's
out
epic,
there.
dude.
Oh my goodness! Back in my younger days, we're old men now.
We're getting up there. Although someone's like, "There's no way you're 37," and I was like, "Oh, thank you." But
you're 37. I thought you were younger than me.
No way, man. I got a young face. It's all that salt air, all that ocean air, keeping me looking youthful.
So I'm 34. I'll be 35 in exactly a month. And if I shave my beard off, dude, I look every bit of 14 years old. So there's a reason I wear this beard. So you don't
get checked constantly with your ID.
100%. Dude, well, y'all met Phil already. My name's Destin Noack, Texas Garden Guy. I'm sure y'all have you know who I am because you're watching on my Facebook page. But yeah, it's been a fun week, man. Did a lot of fig up potting this week.
Dude, I saw that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those trays, I was very impressed with your roots.
I need to hook you up. So what's funny is the guests we're supposed to have on this episode are the people who sell those trays.
Oh, Jen.
Yes, Jen. Did they get a hold of you?
Jen hit me up. Okay. So I'm excited. I'm getting 3 trays on the way, man. Because I was like, those are perfect depth. I'm curious how they'll do. Like right now I've been using Stew & Sons and they do the trick, but they're still compartmentalized. And I loved how hardy and like sturdy these trays are, man.
Yes. So I have some of those Stew & Sons, the tree cones. I have those. They're pretty good, but they're not super sturdy. Like, they probably work a couple times. Especially the tree cones, they're probably a little more fragile than what you're using. Just the taller, like 4-inch or 3-inch or whatever they are. But
I do a mix.
Yeah. I think the ones that I bought into, I've got a bunch of them from last year, and I probably won't do them that size. I'm doing 4.5 tall, 4.5 inch, but they're tall, and so I could have just propagated straight into those, but you go through so much soil doing it like that. You go through a lot of soil doing it. But for people who are just getting into propagating, the same methods that you use for like figs can be pretty much universally used for most, not hardwood plants, but like softwoods and a lot of fruit trees, right? Right. I think we both have a similar process, it seems like.
Relatively inert. So when I say inert, like not too much organic material that can lead to disease. Because you just like the whole goal is like keep them happy and keep them from getting infected and rotting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so the trays, did she send you the 28 cell deep, the deep
Yeah,
28 cell? So the reason I like them so much is they're about 6 inches, 6 or 8 inches tall, and they're made out of
perfect.
100% recycled materials, and they're
Yeah.
super tough. They're super tough. You can walk on top of them. Well, you can. Well, I walked on top of them, so I know you can walk on top of them. But I also, when I go to clean them, I throw them in the dishwasher,
Oh, brilliant.
and they are super heavy duty.
That's what I need. Like, I don't know about you, but I have a heavy hand. I have heavy feet. Like, I have a tendency just to dent, break, chip, rip things without being intentional about it. And
Yeah,
so, like, even in the greenhouse, when I'm flying through like numbers, of like cuttings and cuttings and cuttings, that like I need something that can handle that beating, if you will. And
right.
and I think that's good for like any gardener who's getting started. Like you're just going to go through stuff, and I'm excited. I'm really excited, man. And so, and she's super cool. It was really great interaction acting with her.
Yeah, I wanted to get her and her husband on at the same time, and I guess they had a volleyball game. But we'll try to get them back on at some point. I told him I was like, hey, y'all ready for Thursday? And he goes, oh, do y'all do it live? And I was like, yeah, we do it live. And he goes, well, I got a volleyball game. I'm like, well, that's kind of
So
the
tune
point.
in
We do it.
then.
Yeah, it was like, well, we'll tune in and I'm gonna drop throw you under the bus, but we'll get you back on. We'll get them on for sure. They're
Yeah,
super.
like
They're
literally, like I look forward to this every week, guys, and I look
yeah.
forward to what I learn, what I gather. I look forward to just chatting about plants for more than 5 minutes. If you're one of those people that loves chatting for more than 5 minutes, you tend to lose people. Don't you worry, you join us, man.
Right. Well, and someone was asking me the other day, or I saw a post on Instagram, and it was asking. It showed like an old school picture, like back in the day, and people used to belong to like things called garden clubs.
Yeah,
Garden clubs, and you're a part of one actually, right? Your
I'm part
nursery.
of one.
Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to reignite that torch because I'm one of the younger people there at 37 by like
Yeah.
20 years. There's probably five of us that are under the age of 40, and it is a wealth of knowledge and it is a great community of stuff that I would never think to learn about. As the fig specialist, I've enlightened so many people in this club and organization. But we do all kinds of fun things like greenhouse tours. So every March here in Wilmington, we do the Hobby Greenhouse Club tour, and we go in their home tours and professional tours. So we'll go look at Sheldon Herb Farms out in Leland, North Carolina, but we'll also go look at 6 or 7 home gardens for inspiration and
It's like a
guidance.
pub
And it's
crawl.
great to like, yeah, it's like a pub crawl, but for plants
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
greenhouses, and you get to see everyone's
That's
like setup. Like my friend Jenny specializes in plumerias, and
oh
her setup is beautiful, right? So local groups really can stimulate your brain and get you activated.
right. No, for sure. Well, and I hope that like people who don't have a group or a club or whatever can come hang out with us every week. They can come hang out with us
I
and
hope so.
ask questions and talk with us. Somebody just gave us
Hmm.
something. I think I heard a ding dong. So we got in the comments, Madhavi, love watching all your gardening videos. Thank you. Elizabeth, good evening, everyone. How's it going, Elizabeth? Melissa Wagner, what's going on, Mrs. Nerdrotic? How you doing? Dude, so speaking of like you were saying garden tours, greenhouse tours. So it has been, I don't know what 2024 is going to be like, but if it's
Hmm.
anything like this past Saturday, it's going to be a good year. So,
Oh, do tell.
dude, I do these things called meetups, and I did a bunch of them like the last 2 years, and it's where like we set a time, and I kind of schedule a time to go to a local nursery, and we spend like all day like pretty much going through the nursery, doing like walking tours, and we stop and talk about certain plants. We do raffles and we do giveaways, and I think last year I did like 15. And you get super burnt out, man. You get super burnt out
Mm,
doing a bunch of events. And then if you do a bunch of them too frequently, people are less likely to show up to like every single one, like they'll be like, oh, I'll
right.
catch you on this one. So my idea for this year was we'll still do some meetups, maybe once a month or so, but in between we'll space it out and we'll do some classes where I'm there
Yes.
for like just 1 or 2 hours. And so this nursery that's pretty local, pretty popular here in the Houston area, it's called Enchanted Gardens. And I've done things there before, and it's always been a really great time. The owner and everybody that runs the place, and so we promoted it like for probably 3 or 4 months. And this was like my
Okay.
first big event of the year. It's
And
Thursday. It's Thursday evening, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be wet. It's gonna be wet, wet, wet. And I'm like, of course. Every year, my first event is always either it's usually like the last cold day, or it's super wet. And so I was nervous, and they called me and said, "Hey, there's 1,700 people that have said that they're interested in coming to the event, like on Facebook, and there's
yeah,
over 200. There's over like 200 people that said that they were like RSVP, they're coming."
200
Yeah, and so
and
like,
1,700. Oh my gosh, that's a casual high
dude,
school population right there.
I was like, "What?" But you know how it goes with
Right.
these things that like if 100 people RSVP, you maybe get 50 people show up, but if it's raining, 20 people are showing up. Well, they put up 3 tents and brought in like a bunch of chairs, and it wasn't enough. We had over 200 people show up to the event to sit around and talk gardening for like 2 hours, and it was such a great time, dude. The staff
Yeah.
there was awesome. It was so great, and it was just so because I've been doing the gardening I've been gardening forever, but like I just started the gardening content a couple 3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and it's really awesome to see people show up and support you and something like that, because they don't have to. It's so easy nowadays to say, no, I'm just gonna stay home. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. But it's so easy to sit there and just be like, no, I'm gonna stay home. But I just wanted to bring it up because I was it was so awesome to see that many people there show up to support me, and to spend time with the nursery and support small businesses, local businesses.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited, and I want just to thank everybody for showing up. It meant so much to me, and I had a great time. So, and more to
Congratulations
come,
all around.
more to come. And
Yeah, that's
we're
great.
gonna get Phil to come down to an event this year. If I have to pay out of pocket. By the way, we do this podcast. We do this podcast every week. We don't make any money on this
No,
podcast. I want people to understand that we spend like an
we
hour
learn
or
a
so.
lot,
Yes, we get
but
paid in knowledge.
yeah, we get paid in knowledge. It's called academia.
Yes,
But I'm
yes.
overdue for a Texas visit because my uncles live there and my cousins there too. So and
Well,
they're in the Houston area.
we definitely need to. It's probably a little late to get you here for a spring event, but maybe we can get you
Yeah.
here, midsummer or fall. Maybe we do quite a bit of fall things too, so maybe we can get you out here for the fall. It'd be nice.
Oh, for fig harvesting. I mean,
Fig harvesting, yeah. I mean,
and we got
we
Fig
could
Fest in California.
we could do like a little mini fig fest. We could do like a fig hunters probably got that trademarked already. We could do like a fig fest. I don't know. We can figure
Oh,
something out.
we can. Hey, we need comment section. We need
Ideas.
adjectives with the letter F beginning with F for figs.
Yes, something. I'll chat GPT it. I'll do something like that.
Fabulous
Yes.
fig forest forage.
Yeah, I'll do something like that. Yeah. So somebody's saying come to San Antonio. I would love to come to San Antonio. I have reached out to other places like in Dallas and Austin and San Antonio. It's hard to organize an event when I'm not there. I like a certain level of like professionalism and certain standard. And so if I'm not there, I'm very OCD. So when I'm not there to like manage how things are going to be done and everything, it's kind of out of my. So that's why I mostly do stuff local. But I will be making some trips to do some things. So especially to California
Phil's
with Mr. Phil.
Phil's fig fun fact. I sat next to David Robinson on an airplane once. I was
Who's
10. He
David?
was 7 feet tall. for
Who's
the
David Robinson?
San Antonio Spurs
Oh,
center.
oh, nice. See,
Yeah.
I think the only San Antonio Spur I know is like the Ginobili guy. There's a Manu Ginobili. Is that the
Oh, I don't
same?
know.
Yeah, I
I
don't
fell
know.
out of
I'm not.
contact after NBA Jam for Super Nintendo. I fell off the basketball map.
After I stopped growing at like 5'9", I was like, basketball's not for me, you know. Uh, but going back to the figs, so I get a lot of questions about, propagations in general.
Yeah.
When to up pot things, like if you're got your stuff in a container or like a propagation tray, like you're going to get from All About the Garden. When do you
Yeah.
know it's time to go ahead and up pot or remove
It's
it from
tricky,
the
isn't
original
it?
tray? Yeah.
When you
What
first
is your
start
method?
out, I want to, for people who first start out, because I'm doing volume, is you do clear solo cups. And then you can protect the roots from sun exposure by putting just like a regular solo cup on the outside. And you can start with that for 10, 15 cuttings. And then you can check as you go along. I look for, and then when you're doing that, like some sort of like root boundness. So when they start to really get a structure going. So when you transplant them, you don't yank them out and the roots fall at their sides.
Right.
Um, so I do like constant tugs on the base of my cuttings, and I kind of look for roots in the bottom sometimes. But I'm on like a hard like 2 month rule with some of my figs
60 days.
where yeah, because that's kind of been, and this is like trial and error. Going back to also like I've killed tons of fig cuttings. Like there's a pile. I don't know if you saw my last YouTube video. You saw like my cutting graveyard and um but like 2 months seems to be the Goldilocks zone for when they're really strong enough and they have like substantial plant growth. But they can be certain varieties are more fickle than others.
Yeah.
So some of the trustier varieties, that's why we say start with like your Mount Etna types, so like your Hardy Chicago or a Celeste or Brown Turkey when you're first messing around, is they're a little more resilient to um, root disruption. And then I found that with the LSU varieties, they're a little more resilient as well. Where if you get like sometimes these Black Madeiras or the Col de Dames or like Col de Dame Mutante, like if you disrupt, they can be divas, is what I usually call them. And if you mess with them too much, they'll say, I'm out, they'll
They're
limp
a little
and they'll die.
sensitive.
And you're like, yeah. And you really want that root ball to be established. Now, a lot of times if I'm doing coconut coir and perlite as just my soil mixture, they're nutrient poor, right? So at some point you need to up pot them
Yeah.
to get them growing and sustained energy on their own so they're not burning out their reserves as cuttings. And so,
Right.
but I found that 60-day marker has been really good for me.
Yeah. And I had a couple, and I've seen this before. That Well, I'll start out by saying my go-to, like when I know it's time to up pot, especially on those trays, is when I start seeing roots coming out the bottom.
Yeah,
Like,
out the
but
bottom.
and typically 60 days is about that marker. 60
Mm-hmm.
days for most cuttings in general. That's going to be like your hibiscuses, your angel trumpets, usually around 60 to 90 days. So anywhere between 2 to 3 months, that's when you start seeing roots. And so that's when I'll go ahead and up pot, and I'm a gradual up pot. If I've got a quart size container that I've got my original cutting in, I'm not going to go from one quart to like a 5 gallon. That I think
Mm-mm.
that's where a lot of people get confused, and like they go to the Walmarts, they go to the Home Depots, and they buy something in a 1 gallon container, and they go home and put it like in a giant container. It's usually not the most advantageous way to treat your
I can,
container plant.
right. You can relate. Like you get excited, like it's this brand new plant. You want to turn it into this awesome tree, but it's not there yet. It likes to grow gradually. They do have root proprioception where they're understanding, like, and it's even out here in my fig nursery, like everything's gradual. So I have my little rooting pots. They go into like the I think they're technically 3/4 gallon, but 1 gallon pots. And then I scale from there.
I've got to say this. So, a lady named Mary Newton from Massachusetts is watching, and she has given us 99 stars. Thank you very much, Mary.
Mary, thank you so
Mary,
much.
we're talking about figs, and we got a lady named Mary Newton from. She might be the heir to the Fig Newton, like the company. She might be. She might be heir to them. You never know.
Oh, hey.
If you run the Fig Newton factory, well, I guess it's just the Newton factory now.
Or maybe
we want a tour. We want a tour.
Mary, and you're probably from Newton, Massachusetts. How are you? Hey Mary, I used to live in Cambridge, and I had fig trees there, and
Oh, nice.
and I used to follow. There was this guy called Joe Morley. He came over. I forget. He lived in Roslindale, Massachusetts, and I got my first two fig trees from him. And he has created some staples in the fig community, such as black Triana, white Triana, and a few other fig varieties, Gioca d'Oro. So that's like a drop of gold in Italian. So you can grow figs up there.
Absolutely. I think people misunderstand, like, that they think that figs are like tropical, and I guess they are semi-tropical, but they can handle quite a bit of cold as long as they have that root system set up.
A lot of people like rely
ground
on that root system. Yeah. So like a lot of people, especially those Mount Etna varieties, just chop them down to the ground and they'll come up as new growth every year and they'll get their main crop fruit. And they just grow them as a bush like that every year. Or you can wrap them and protect them. The big piece that usually gets fig trees, because they can go down to 15, 10, even 5 degrees without necessarily dieback, is the late winter, early spring freezes. When they think it's spring, they wake up and then a snap happens, their sap's flowing and they can't handle it because they have retracted all that sap. They're dormant, but it's those late time winters and early springs that get them. And otherwise they can handle cold temps.
Yep. Are you, whenever you're taking cuttings, are you getting all your cuttings before the first freeze?
I wait for a few freezes. It doesn't necessarily mean that sap flow stopped. It can slow. Okay. It has different rates. If I waited for it to stop, like, I don't know, I went out here and trimmed a few fig trees in middle of January and the sap was still flowing. So that's a relative thing.
Okay.
And I'm also, as a fig person, I've rooted everything all times a year. But there are times better than others.
Yeah, because that's what I was wondering. Because I took some cuttings after the freeze, after they defoliated, and it got pretty cold. And so I'm noticing those cuttings aren't taking off as fast as when the sap was really flowing.
They're a little more dormant than others. In fact, I'll even put mine in the fridge for a day or two if they have a lot of sap flow, just to like chill them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I mean, the key is all the measures that you would take to preserve your cuttings. So like wrapping them in saran wrap and putting them in a plastic bag and retaining that moisture. But
so anytime you take a cutting, it goes in the fridge first.
As of right now, yes. Because whether I'm taking it for an order or I don't necessarily want to plant right away. I have limited free time as a parent. But I've found that it makes them a little more resilient, especially if I have less than ideal climates for rooting them.
That's crazy because I do a lot of like crop right and crop. I do crop and crop and churn them. And but and I think I'm getting quicker growth, but they may not be as resilient as like you're saying.
But I think that might be something that I just need to commit to, like take them off the tree, put them in, and I know like Dave Burke has talked about that. He's like right away, but he's like in like the most perfect fig climate of all time.
Yeah, he's basically in Italy.
Yeah,
he's basically at Mount Etna. He's like in a valley where he's got elevation. It's not that cold, but it's he's basically in a microclimate of his own.
I would say the fig hunter fig cuttings have been quite resilient for me too. All those new varieties, and I think he gets. I wonder this. I always think about this with new fig varieties like that. If the genetic diversity makes them stronger, rather than these purebreds that have been passed down year over year. I wonder if with these new ones that come up every once in a while, like, hey, they're so genetically diversified that they can just take off a little bit easier than others. I think of like purebred dogs and things, but
I was about to make that analogy because my mom just had to put like our dog down this past week, and she was this little mutt. She was a half think she was a half pug, half wiener dog, and she was 13 years old, and she
So a
had
dire
been
wolf.
through. Oh my god, dude, she was like this little dachshund wiener dog, like pug mix, and she was a little bitty thing, and she was 13 years old, and it was so sad. My mom took her to the vet
Oh.
to put her down, and she died in her lap waiting, and it's just so sad. But it's like you say, like usually the mutts are the ones that live forever. Like you go get a purebred dog and they choke on a skittle, and you get the little mutts and they live forever.
And they live like they're
They're
quite resilient,
bulletproof.
aren't they?
Yeah.
Um,
So
but
yeah,
I'm
I
about one
believe
month in
what
with a
you're
lot.
saying.
Yeah. So I wonder. This is like the stuff. Like this is the theoretical 300 level fig stuff that we start talking about. But I'm about. I started all my cuttings end of December because I was focusing a lot on my fig cutting sale at holiday time. So I'm about my first few trays are about coming up on 6 weeks now, and I'm excited. They're looking good. So we'll see if they transplant
Yeah.
well.
Are you going to be selling rooted cuttings in the spring?
Yes, I aim for April because I don't want to ship during cold spells too much. And our last frost here is April 1st. And then I will be tabling at 2 events that first weekend in April up here in Wilmington, Hampstead. It's called the Poplar Grove. It's a really cool farm and nature trail. It's actually one of the furthest points of the Gullah Gullah range from Gullah culture in the
Okay.
southeast.
I saw the TV show as
But
a kid.
Oh, Gullah Gullah Island, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes from here all the way down to northern Florida, but they have a huge plant sale every year, so everyone gets together there. And the Hobby Greenhouse Club is also having their plant sale that weekend, which is also Azalea Fest here in Wilmington, which is one of the biggest azalea festivals in the country.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I, one sale that I'm looking forward to, and I went to it last year. And if y'all
Hmm.
are interested in like stuff like plumerias, like me and Phil both love plumerias, check out the Plumeria Society of America.
Ooh.
They're an organization, and they like are hardcore on plumerias. And I actually went to a sale down here in the Houston area last year, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like it was at this civic center, like in a park, right? And
Yeah.
I had a buddy tell me about it, and he's like, "You should go." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I actually knew one of the vendors that was going to be selling. She
Oh,
lives in
cool.
Browns. She and her husband live in Brownsville, and they were going to come up here for the sale. And
Yeah.
so when I get there at this park, there must be a line of like 300 people, like from the door to the parking lot. And it's this small little event center. It's not huge. And like they open the doors at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And it was like Black Friday, like Toys R Us. It was crazy. Um, they all have these tables, and people who are like really into plumerias and stuff collect
Hmm.
that stuff like Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Like they hand out the sheet, and it tells you like which table has which varieties from which grower, because if they have people want like a certain grower and they want certain varieties, and like that's what they're there
Mm.
for. But like it was really cool. You can buy like a cutting for like 10-20 bucks depending on the variety. They
Yep.
even had some adeniums, and that's
Ooh.
I'm gonna get you into those this year, Phil. I'm gonna get
What's an
you into
adenium? Desert
desert
rose. That's
rose.
that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jenny, our primary person here, has a huge one. It's beautiful. Um,
usually people that are into plumerias will also get into the desert roses.
um,
They have a very
gosh,
similar looking flower, but they're
got
completely
it.
different plants. So I got to trick you into getting the desert rose this year too.
You're
They're
getting
they're
me into different plants, like in more ornamental stuff. Like I have 2 bromeliads that are one's about to flower for me, and I'm kind of stoked. And
yeah.
it hangs out on my succulent shelves, and it's making more babies. So I'm like, I have another plant hobby.
Oh, dude. So I had never been into bromeliads. There's this nursery over here, and they like they specialize in growing like world class bromeliads. And
Whoa.
I had never been into them because like they to me like they don't even flower. I didn't even see them flower before. And so I
Hmm.
was there talking to the owner, and she's like, "Are you into bromeliads?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "They don't flower. They don't produce fruit. I don't want them." And she's like, "Oh, you never seen them flower before?" And I was like, they flower? She's like, yeah, they flower in the wintertime. And I was like, really? Okay. So she takes me into this greenhouse, and it's like probably 100 feet long, but 50 foot wide. And it's just
Okay.
all these rare, like psychedelic looking flowers on these bromeliads.
Holy
Like
cow.
so they grow like, there's got to be a term for this. So like a plant scientist, Vikram would probably know this, but for a term for plants that grow like conically, like an aloe or a bromelia, they all have very similar flowers. They kind of grow a little spike up, and they
Yep.
have like there's got to be a term for like growing like that. But they basically grow like an aloe or like an
Century
agave
plant. Right.
yeah, they grow like that, and I had no idea, but they were like these blue and purple and like psychedelic, like blacklight looking colors, and it was incredible. So I had to get some bromeliads that day. I had to get some. I had to get some,
And they
but they
look
spread
so like
out.
artificial. They don't look real. They look like they're made out of like plastic, but they're not, and it makes them look so alien. It's like that scene in
Yeah,
E.T. where they go to like his home planet ship or whatever, and you're like, "What is this?" But it's pretty cool. I'm very impressed. It's another thing to propagate. It's like cross training propagation for figs. Same with
yeah.
plumerias. Plumerias were really easy to propagate. I was very impressed with that.
Yes. If you can, if you do have the opportunity, try to pollinate your flowers and try to get some
Oh,
seeds. I've actually got
okay.
plumeria seeds right here that a
I
follower
saw you
sent me.
planting those. They looked really cool. They
They
almost look
look
like
like
maple
pine
leaf
cone.
seeds. Maple seeds, yeah.
They kind of look like pine seeds, like almost like
Oh.
they're like little woody, barky little flakes, and you
And how
soak
do you put
them.
them? You soak them? Okay.
You soak them in lukewarm water. Like some people say overnight, but I find when you do it for too long, they start to break down. But if you look really close, you can see they're kind of like tadpoles. They have like these little wavery little tails in the back, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the actual seed pod. And so you stick
Got
it
it.
in the ground about to where that end pokes up out of the ground,
Okay.
and then it grows super fast. They grow really fast. Um,
Oh,
I
awesome.
started I started some like in the middle of summer, and they're already like a foot or so tall. Um,
Oh,
but the thing about if you it's like you were talking about propagating plumerias, you can do the same
right.
thing with desert roses. You do the same thing with desert roses. You can propagate them from cutting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if you harvest a plumeria or a desert rose seed,
Yeah.
you never know what color it's going to be. Just because it came from that colored flower doesn't mean that the seed is going to be that flower.
Oh, I like that. It's going to switch up just like a fig that has been caprified would do. You don't know what
Yeah,
you're going to get from the child. It's not going to be the same as the parent.
it's
Um,
like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
you can't tell
Such a
a dad
cornball.
joke.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Forget about it.
Uh,
Hey, I am going to need help, and I might have to do this live of pruning my plumeria and the best way to go about it. Is it the same as
okay.
a fig tree? And like, where do I cut it from on the branch? And I know like multiple shoots will come out from wherever I prune it from.
Yeah, same thing with like your adenium. Like when you get your adenium, same thing. The more you prune it, it splits off everywhere you prune it.
Okay.
I don't have a plumeria that I'm necessarily going to prune. Um, yet because yours is huge. Yours is huge. I would definitely
Mine's
prune yours.
huge. Yeah.
I wouldn't prune any pieces smaller than like 8 to 10 inches. Like I would make sure they're at least like 8 inches tall. I
Hmm.
wouldn't prune anything like any pieces smaller than that. Prune stuff that's growing in, like how you would kind of like your fig tree probably, just
Okay.
um, but then
How
give
do they
yourself
heal?
some.
Do they heal nicely? Like, how does the bark wrap around it?
They'll get a little mushy sometimes. So you want to leave like a couple inches for dieback.
Yep.
And you definitely would want to do it like in the early spring. Like I would say do it in the spring or late fall. But
Okay.
I would say early spring are probably better. And then uh, some people say, I had somebody, I think it was a Hawaiian or someone who lives in Hawaii. They were saying, because I let mine scab over, I let the end callus over before I
Hmm.
propagate them. They were saying they don't do that. And that was
Oh,
actually someone who lives in Hawaii, which I would think in Hawaii you would have worse humidity issues and have more problems with like that stuff breaks it down. Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. So cut the mushy part. If it's mushy, that's you got a problem, Melissa. It shouldn't be mushy. Um, you definitely want to, and that's another good point. I'm glad you said that because you'll
Yeah.
see like the green growth. You don't want to go cutting the green growth. You want to cut where it's starting to get a little woody. You know,
Hmm.
the green growth. I found I when I took a cutting from one of mine, I cut it a little too green, and I wish I'd have waited a little bit. And so the end is it's still healing over. That's why whenever you ask me how does it heal, I feel like this one's still healing.
Got
You
it.
know, but I think I did it the wrong time of year. I think I just did it the wrong time of year. So I think I did it like in the middle of summer, and I wish I would have waited.
So I'm wondering.
I
So we
was doing
cut.
it for a
It's a.
video. Yeah,
We want to do things when they're lignified. At least a lot of trees like that too. It's figs especially too. Um,
when you
but
say
not necessarily.
lignified, are you talking about when the sap is flowing or when it's
When I say
the bark?
lignification, I think about the bark's hardening off, the woods
Got you.
hardening off on the tree,
Yeah,
and it's not going to look the same as like your 4-year-old wood. It's going to be your 1-year-old wood that in fig world your brabas are going to form off of in the next year. Um, but I
yeah,
wonder if that's the same with plumerias, where it's just easier on the plant. But my
yeah.
specialty is in figs, and I get to learn everything else now.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I mean I don't know how long you've been actually like selling figs and everything like that, um, but like every year my tastes and like what I get into change up a little bit. Like I didn't lose like my passion for figs. It's just I'm still doing the figs, but I've added something else that I'm passionate, like the desert roses and the
Yeah.
plumerias, and getting into more like you know, native plants
Hmm.
and other fruit trees besides citrus, So
I
like,
think it's really
and
cool. Like
that's how you'll get.
gardening's like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
gardening's a journey. It's very fourth dimensional, right? And like we are never the same people we were 5 years ago. Like
Oh
imagine
yeah.
who you were 5 years ago, and you're like, no way, how'd that happen? You would never. It moves fast enough for us not to really notice until we look back. And I think gardening's like that too, where the things I focused on in gardening were more basic gardening varieties, and figs played a role, but the obsession kind of has grown and it's meandered within that obsession. And
Yeah.
a lot of it now is just scaling and and I'm in that big exploratory phase, right? So as a newer nursery, I'm about 2 years in, everything is like me dialing in everything I've experimented with. And whatever I find that's been working, I run with that more. And then a little piece of experiment is happening off to the side constantly. Um,
That's where like when I do these talks and stuff, it gets kind of I wouldn't say confusing, but it gets hard for me to give people a definite answer on like when
mhm.
someone asks me about fire ants or someone asks me about the number one is always like how often do you water, and I can tell them how much I water. But
Right.
just because I water this much doesn't mean you need to water that much, or you may need to water less. You may need to water more. It's so different, even from one yard to another. You have to find out what works for you. You know,
Right. And
in the
it's
systems.
very idiosyncratic based yard to yard, where you would find something that is like you could live on like clay soil in one spot, and like this happens in my neighborhood. I'm on the
Mm-hmm.
coast, we have sandy soil everywhere, but intermittently there were marshes with a lot of biogenous material that settled out, and it gets thick and muddy and lots of and clays as well. And so
Explain the
if you
big
hit the
word.
oh
Biogenous. What the hell is biogenous?
biogenous, like it's just like organic material
Okay.
that turns into sediment, right? And it
Okay.
was created from something biologically. So it's like
Okay.
some sort of carbon rich bodied thing. So like dead leaves that break down and release methane and turn into mud as they break down from bacteria, right?
I got you.
So
Okay.
yeah, um,
It's
focusing
so
on
it's a
that
that's a broad term.
biofeed.
That's a broad term. It can mean a lot of things. It can
Yes.
mean all, yes, but it's nutrient
And
rich.
yes, it can be nutrient rich, but when you start getting into those areas, there's also clay deposits and silt deposits where water can't escape that well, but like sandy
Okay.
soil, water can escape quite well. And so I could have 3 houses down, their yard could flood and it'd take forever to get out. And I had the same in my house. I'd have this sandy soil that would be nutrient poor, that things wouldn't be getting enough water and they would dry out. And so
Okay.
you can have those little idiosyncrasies within just even a neighborhood is what I'm saying. And it's kind of like us as, explorers of our own yard. It helps you get to know your yard. But there are general rules of thumbs when you do like potted gardening, potted plants and
Mm-hmm.
things too, I guess.
And that's one of the talk I did last week was all about raised garden beds and why raised garden beds are so cool. And I do raised garden beds out of necessity because I have
Mm-hmm.
to. I've got utility lines running through my yard. I got terrible soil. It would be a nightmare to have to amend all this soil, to do it.
Yeah.
I got nasty gumbo clay soil. It doesn't drain.
Yeah.
So it's just I find, and one of the main components that works for me is being able to control my soil quality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're trucking it in, you know exactly what you're planting in. You know exactly how it's rolling. So you don't really have to worry about. Like, people always ask me, "Well, when was the last time you did a soil test?" I'm like, I've never done a soil test, like ever. I've never done one.
I have
So like,
exported that job to someone, and I take that dirt and bring it in. Yeah,
yeah,
I
exactly.
would love to get a soil test going in my yard, and there are pockets of my yard that I dig up, and I'm like, this is pale yellow sand. There's no nutrients here, and like a lot of
Wow.
times, if I'm putting fig trees in the ground, I will dig that hole twice as big as the tree itself, and I will amend it in there.
Have
But fig trees can grow in a variety of soil types too.
Fig trees are pretty resilient to crappy soil. Like, out of
Yeah.
all of the plants, like I've only got one tree that's in the ground in my crappy soil, and it's a brown turkey fig in the corner of my yard that doesn't get hardly any sun, and it's doing great. It's doing great. I get a ton of figs every year.
Isn't
And
that, it's a little frustrating. You're like the tree you don't pay attention to does phenomenal.
100%. And it's like your Celeste tree that grows on the side of the house. That's like
Yeah.
your Celeste. You get a million cuttings from it every year,
Oh
but
my
it's just like set it and forget it. If the mockingbirds get to that one, go ahead. They're not the best tasting figs. They are some of
God.
the
Right.
biggest ones, but they're not the best quality figs. For me.
Yes. My
So
Celeste is a workhorse variety. It's dependable. And from the thing, it's like it goes all out for 3 weeks and then it's kind of done. Where I have some other varieties that have like a longer harvesting time, especially like those Mount Etnas. If people are curious, like those are some of them are everbearing, is what they call them, but they
yeah,
just cut their main crop just keeps going, and that's Celeste, but like feeds the whole neighborhood for a good 3 weeks.
it's like a determinate variety fig tree. Like, it's
Yes.
the brown turkey's more or less kind of an everbearing. It puts out pretty frequently, but like you
Hmm.
were saying, the Hardy Chicago, like that Mount Edna version,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a workhorse that puts out like the whole time. Um, Melissa said, "What should I do with my in-ground fig right now? It's just a stick, but I see new growth peeking out." So if your
Where's
fig
Melissa
tree is in
located?
the I know exactly where she's at. She's in San Antonio, Texas. Um,
Oh.
and so it's San Antonio is pretty tropical. Um,
Hmm.
so they won't get they might get another freeze, but it shouldn't be too bad. But like Phil was saying earlier, what can happen is, like, this nice weather we're getting, these
Yep.
trees start thinking it's springtime, and they will put on some new buds,
And you're
and
like,
then
no, no, wait, 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 wait.
and then and then that last freeze comes in like the beginning of March, and it you know knocks that new growth off. Does it mean it's going to kill the tree? No, but it may delay the breba crop coming in, or
It may
it
cancel the
may
Brava crop
yeah,
because you need that last year's wood, right? The big thing that I did, there's two pieces to this. Sorry to jump in.
no, please.
The I chatted with the millennial gardener on this. We were like, okay, what's causing this early breakout of growth?
By the
And
way, he won't respond to my DMs. By the way, I tried to invite him on. He won't. I need you to shoe me in on
he's
that.
I will. He's brilliant. And he was talking that sun exposure, sunlight. So in San Antonio, if you're getting a lot of sunlight with the warmth, that encourages it too. Winter light can, with lower in the horizon, it'll respond to that, but higher. If once you start getting those sunnier days, it'll respond to that with the heat as well. And he had success delaying growth by using shade cloth. Now, it sounds like you're already pushing out buds. That means sap flow is happening. I was able to do the leaf bags at Lowe's, and I cut the top off and I made that like an insulating piece, and I filled that with
Mm-hmm.
leaves because I have a big leaf pile out back, and that was enough insulation that when I had a freeze, it protected all the green leaf growth. And I smushed it in there. It'll settle, smush, settle, smush. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but worst case scenario, if another freeze does come, you may get your first crop in the spring canceled, or it might be later, or you might just end up getting an early fall crop, like an earlier fall crop. Would probably make some sense too.
yeah, it sounds like your main crop would just be later in the year.
Yeah. Well, in the second crop, the fall crop's always the best one anyway.
It's better, yeah. There are select few varieties like the Desert King, which is a San Pedro variety, that has a really good Breba crop, and I think my Paradiso has a good Breba crop. But general rule of thumb is that the main crop's always tastier.
Yeah, well, in a San Pedro, for me, I would only get the spring crop
Right,
because in the
you would
fall,
need caprification.
right, you need the wasp or the caprifig to get that wasp that pollination. Um, Elijah says, "Why do my cucumbers always come out bitter?"
I do not
So
know.
that's a great question. So, what I have found is certain cucumber varieties do better in the early spring, and some cucumber varieties do better in the summer. So I forget which one it is. There's small leaf cucumbers and large leaf cucumbers. I forget which one it is, but you can look into it and you'll see like there's more heat tolerant cucumbers. The heat is what's creating a bitter cucumber though. So like that's why I try to get my cucumbers growing fast. I try to get my cucumbers going like really really quick. I told myself I wasn't going to try to start them early, and I did it. And so we'll deal with it. I'll plant backups if I need to. But yeah, I try to get my cucumbers growing really quick because by the time like here in this part of Texas, May June, it's gonna almost be too hot for cucumbers already. What I
Wow.
did find this year is there is a variety called the Armenian striped or the Asian striped cucumber, and it grows like I said. Put a picture on my Instagram the other day. It grows like a foot long, and turns out they're actually not even really a cucumber. They're in the cucumberate family, but they're technically a muskmelon. But those varieties, like the English cucumbers and the Asian variety of cucumbers, are going to be less bitter. They're not going to have a ton of flavor, but they're going to be not bitter, is what I found. So I
So
would
you're gonna
give
have
those.
those for like dice them up and eat them with your like tzatziki sauce and
We even pickled them. The pickles turned out great too.
oh
Yeah, the pickles turned out really good. And what I found, the Asian striped or the Armenians, they don't have
yeah.
the pricklies that the regular cucumbers have. They are
Oh,
more they're fuzzy. They're
they're
kind of
fuzzy.
fuzzy on us.
But the
And
husk, even though like a type of melon, the husk is edible.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I got them in the garage. Like they're good.
Oh
They're
yeah,
really
nice.
good. The muskmelons, you don't have to peel them. You don't have to
Yeah.
peel them. It's a very thin, very mild tasting cucumbers, and they will grow in full sun. I had those growing all year round, and just like loofahs, they grow like loofahs. Like you want a trellis for these, and I found that picking them like 10 to 12 inches, they start to get a little tough after that. But like 10 to 12 inches, it's a big cucumber. You can make a lot of pickles with just a couple of them. Though.
This
That's
is always a
awesome.
fun time of year for gardening when you're talking about like planting the cucumber seeds anyway. Like the zeal is real. Like I feel like I have the seeds, I have the trays. Spring, get here already. Like, let's do
Yeah.
this. My
Well,
friend
and like,
Marissa, she just hooked me up with some raised beds. I'm like, let's do this. Like, more trays, more, you know? So if anyone's feeling the same
yes.
way, I'm right there with, with you.
Oh
Also,
yeah.
it was 34 degrees last night. So we're figuring it out, right?
Ooh, man. It got down to I think 30. It's supposed to get down to like 37 next week. So I mean, it's not super cold. I bought my greenhouse heater and I've yet to use it. I've still been using the heat lamps. I just don't
It's
feel like
kind of a
messing with
win.
it. If they're working, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's kind of my thought process. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Someone told me
Uh,
once a true engineer doesn't make things work, he makes things barely work. And I don't know how I understand that, but like I can relate
hey man,
maybe.
that's a, that's what duct tape's for, dude. I'm from Texas. You can fix anything with a roll of duct tape and a channel pair of channel locks. You can fix anything with that.
And some
Uh,
bamboo rods.
yeah, bamboo comes in handy, dude. Bamboo really does. I need to find a friend who's got bamboo because if I could get a hold of some bamboo, like bamboo is
I'm about to
awesome. It
grow
just doesn't.
some.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that because
Okay.
I had done some research on clumping bamboo because a lot of people that have bamboo in their yard, it can get invasive, but if you plant the
That's the
wrong
big thing.
variety.
Okay.
Um, and there's quite a bit of like like research you can do. Like I'll send you a link because there's people who like farm bamboo like here in like the like Kentucky and stuff. And there's a lot of stuff. People eat bamboo. People eat bamboo.
I've seen
Um,
people eat it, that really tender piece, like down at the bottom when it's first sprouting. And I was like,
yeah,
you better, like the bamboo
it,
shoots. Yeah.
yeah, and they eat bamboo. You can sell it. You can harvest it and sell it for crafts or for construction material. There's a lot of stuff you can do with bamboo, but this guy does an entire video showing you how to manage it.
Okay.
And the clumping bamboo is not going to spread like the regular bamboo. The
Thank
way they
goodness.
explain, like I forget what it's called. There's clumping bamboo and there's spreading bamboo or whatever. But basically, if you get like the spreading kind, what it does is you put it in the ground and then like it's like a canna lily or like a banana. It'll have that rhizome underneath the ground and it'll spread like
Okay.
100. It'll spread like 10 feet apart and then come up again, and then it'll
hmm
do the same thing. But the clumping bamboo, which you can actually grow in containers too, I've heard,
Okay.
will just do different more levels every time. It doesn't spread like crazy. So,
I
but
like the
I'll
sound
see
of
that link.
that. It feels like I have a space in my yard where I was just going to dig down and put kind of like plastic barriers around and enclose it. But it's really just like a cost cutting measure when I use bamboo as sturdy structure pieces when I ship my fig trees in the spring. And
And it's
so
expensive.
it's expensive and it's easy to grow. So I was like, wait a second, there's an inverse relationship here that I got to correct. And so if I isolate a place in my yard, let it get a little nuttier growth out there, but you have to select the ones, like some will get like this big around and grow like 40 feet.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable. And then so I want to get like the ones that like I can manage, and I want something manageable. So I'm excited to watch this video.
yeah. I'll send you the link because he talks about different varieties. There's a black bamboo that's like super desirable.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
so cool looking. It's so cool looking. I'll definitely send you that link. Um,
Um, It reminds me of, like, as far as clumping, like I have a nice, beautiful accent of umbrella papyrus on my shower, and it'll freeze and die back every year, but it comes back with vengeance, and it's beautiful, and it looks like little palm trees in a cluster
on your
um,
shower?
on the outside of my shower on the accent wall, basically. So
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, and it's my outdoor shower. I have my outdoor shower.
Oh, I was gonna say, I thought you meant an outdoor shower, dude. I want an outdoor shower so bad. I would
It's
love to shower outside.
We shower outside 95% of the time. Inside is for like bedtime baths, and then sometimes when I'm like, oh crap, I have to shower, I'm covered in dirt. But even at night, like I'll look up, I'll look at the stars, like I shower in the mornings, like the sunrise is there, I hear the birds, I got a palm tree next to it, so you're just like living it up.
What you ought to do is build some kind of base that you can walk on top of that'll collect the water so you can use it for watering your stuff.
I know. Oh, that'd
Like
be
some
brilliant.
kind of catch basin. Some kind of catch basin or whatever. It'd be kind of neat. Yeah, I know
To
people who like
recirculate it.
yeah, I mean, I know. Well, you just like to catch the fresh water so you can use it to water your plants and stuff. Like, because I know, like, Epic Gardening uses like his dish, is it his gray water from like his washing machine?
Yeah.
He's able to use that in the garden. You got to use you got to use certain kind of detergent, but I mean, you can definitely do it.
Yes. Right now, I have a French drain that goes out into the yard, and it diffuses into sandy soil. Fortunately, here in North Carolina in the summer, it rains every day in the afternoon,
Yeah.
so we're not in a totally like conscious place of drought. And but water's still water, and like I like that
Oh
idea.
yeah. Well, like you heard from Dirty Punk, Jeremy, he was telling us that he only waters with rainwater, and I'm like, man,
Dude.
that's so amazing.
Because that's the best water too. Like that
Yes.
stuff's great for your plants, and his setup must be amazing in the summer,
Oh my
especially with like
God, yeah.
Ohio, like just having nice like high 80s temperatures, and it gets down to like 68 at night, and like it must be unreal.
Yeah, well, I guess since we brought him up, we can go ahead. I'm going to announce we got we're going to do a big episode to kick spring off.
I'm excited for this.
The entire lineup is not. So we do our podcast on this app called Riverside, and I can do up to 8 guests at one time. And so I want to do a giant spring garden, like, the start of spring. So we're going to do like a Saturday night live stream with all of my favorite, garden guests that I can get on. And Phil will obviously be one. This will be March 2nd, Saturday, March 2nd. I'll make sure to post about it, obviously, beforehand. But we're going to have Michael Fiore from Smith's Garden Town. So me, you, Michael Fiore, Smith's Garden Town. We got Dirty Punk, Jeremy Trotsky. Who else? Hold on. I got my calendar. So
Is
I got my
Vikram on
calendar.
there?
Vikram's going to be on there. We're going to have Stephanie from River V Growers, and I think
Nice.
that's all for now. I'm working on 2 more guests. I don't want to give it away, but I can have up to 8 guests on at one time. And so that's going to be awesome. That's going to be Saturday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, like we always do, but it'll be on Saturday. And so that's going to be a big one to kind of kick off the spring garden. And I figure what we do is make it like a block party kind of thing where we just come on and we'll just, like, we usually go for like an hour or so here. But since it'll be Saturday night, we'll just go until, whatever, like till we get tired of talking. So
I love it.
I figured that'll be a good time. And, I gotta allow more time whenever we have like more than like 4 people on. It's hard because we always like we'll talk over each other, or like someone doesn't get to talk enough, and I always feel bad, So like if we're gonna have 8 people on, and it will be 8, I will get 8 people on, and we'll be able to answer all the garden questions and have a big audience there on Saturday night. So that's gonna be an awesome one, man.
And you know what, Dustin? You're a great facilitator. You're really good at like being cognizant of everyone and getting their turn to like talk about what they're growing, how things are going for them. So kudos to you.
I think it's more of like me reflecting on myself, because even when I grew up, I had quite a bit of a stutter, and I still do from time to time. So I have to tell myself like, hey, slow down, talk normal, talk slowly, and be what's the right word? Be cognizant of like what you're saying, and don't just talk to talk. And then also, being a good host is not always being the one who's talking the most, is letting people talk too. Being a good host is being a good listener as well. And so I was laughing last week because someone said, "Man, Texas Garden Guy, someone's stealing the show from him." I'm like, dude, I enjoy it when people talk more than me. I love it. Because I mean, if it's just me talking, it's gonna be a boring podcast.
No.
Oh my goodness. Well, Phil, I appreciate you coming on again, dude. As always,
Always.
you're my fig brother from another mother.
You got it, man.
Let everybody know where they can find you, and well, you still got fig cuttings for sale as well, right?
I still have fig cuttings for sale, guys. It's a great thing to try to jump into while you're planting all your seeds. You can find them at philsfigs.com, my Instagram store, my Facebook store. You can find me on all the social medias except for X.
Are you on
And
TikTok now?
I'm not on TikTok. Hold on. I'm not on TikTok yet. I got to get on that. But reach out, Instagram, Facebook. I'm happy to answer questions for you guys. I love helping everyone grow fig trees. It's an amazing fruit.
Yeah, it's not too late to start. Late fall, early spring, good time to start. You can even do it inside and on the windowsill. And I'm Texas Garden Guy, and I will be here every week, every Thursday with Mr. Phil, and we'll be talking gardening. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to send me a DM, send me an email. I'm Texas Garden Guy on every platform, including X. Yep. I don't check X, but I'm on there. So appreciate y'all coming out and hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.